All right, excellent people. Got another story for you. Today is May 5th, 2021, and today I want to tell you a story about sleep. So, it must have been 6 years ago now. I was in Southeast Asia with some friends and the person who's now my ex wife. And they were all there for school. They were doing some studying. I was just tagging along because I could. So during the day, they would all go do school stuff, and I would wander around and do my own thing. And then in the evenings, we would all come together. And so the evenings were a bit rowdy, as might be expected, given a bunch of young Americans in Southeast Asia looking to have a good time and have a good cultural experience, etc. So one night we stayed up far too late, being very rowdy in the pool, and I know that I imbibed my fair share of fire water, and I imbibed more than my fair share of pool water. So I ended up waking up the next day and feeling a quality that could really only be described as vertigo. And I say vertigo rather than just hungover because it wasn't just hungover. And it was vertigo in particular because this was a unique experience to me. I am a climber, I am a lifelong climber. At this point in my life, I'm a professional climber. At that point, I was just a hobbyist climber. But for me, climbing and heights and the feeling of disorientation isn't a thing for me, like at least not that physical disorientation. And so this day, I'm convinced to this day that what I experienced was the consequence of accidentally swallowing some pool water. There was some wrestling and some other stuff, and if you know what chicken fighting is, there was definitely some of that. We were inspired by, we had gone to the temple complexes the day prior. We were in Cambodia, and we had gone to the Angkor Wat temple complexes, and the tour guide had been talking about the elephant battles that the king had put on, where they had elephants do battle. And so we were, we were doing a little bit of reenacting of those elephant battles in the pool. And so a fair number of people got finished, if you could say, under the water. And anyhow, the story that I want to get to, rather than all that background, which I might tell that story another time, is that this following day, the other people had class stuff to do. So I took off and I went back to the temples because I had seen something while we were there the day before that I wanted to explore further. So I rented a bicycle and I biked my way to the temples, and I found this. There's an inner ring in the Angkor Wat Temple complex. So the Angkor Wat Temple complex is like one of the largest religious structures on the planet. It's miles and miles of temples. Now they're temple ruins, but it's still very impressive, large scale stone structures with intricate carvings. It's very cool stuff. And there's an inner ring that has a wall and a moat. And so as you pass through the inner ring, if you're not paying attention, you won't even notice. But because I was on a bicycle and I was moving a little slower, I look to my left and I see there's a trail. So I cut off onto the trail. Well, it turns out this trail is a perimeter footpath that runs along the top of the inner wall. There's an elevation change that's fairly slight. And so where I actually came through, I didn't realize the height of the wall that I was on. But as I went to the south along this trail, I realized that it was actually a significant sized man-made wall, something like 30 feet tall at its highest, maybe a little bit more than that. It wasn't anything super massive, but it was appreciable. And there's a moat, an actual, ring water structure around the wall. So the wall drops down and there's a little bit of land and there's water. And it wasn't totally contiguous. Like all this stuff is, I think that this complex might have been built in like the 1300s. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. So, I mean, we're talking about a 700-year-old structure. So the walls are not in great shape anymore and the moat's not totally intact anymore. And in fact, I find my way to a lesser used gate. So I pass through the one gate that the road goes through where the buses and everybody else comes in. And I find this other gate as I move to the south along this footpath, and this other gate is functional, open, but all the stonework in the area is in disrepair. And I hear in the distance, because this is a fairly, when I say gate, gate's sort of a misleading statement because these were like big archways. And so across the way, maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred feet from me, there's some fellows doing some repair work. And so it looks like what we've got is a group of local artisans who are actually actively restoring these openings, probably with the intention of making this a future site that people actually come and look at. Well, I'm tired at this point, and I'm hot, and I'm feeling the effects of the night before, and there's this big stone. I guess it's like a facade, or like a big pillar, a big tower made of series of stacked stones on either side of the gate, and they're not working on anywhere near where I am, and it all looks like it's in pretty good repair. So I decided to go for a little climb, and as I'm climbing up, I'm feeling like sick, and I'm feeling dizzy, and I'm so taken aback by this because I've never had this. It's not that I've never had this feeling before, but it's that this feeling is just so foreign to me. This feeling is not a part of my normal. Climbing for me is almost like breathing. And so I get up here and I find a nice flat spot. And lo and behold, here is this giant Buddha face. I mean, this thing has got to be 15 feet tall. And so I've got this Buddha face, and just below the Buddha face, there's a little ledge. And I'm probably 25 feet above the ground at this point. Nothing crazy. Once again, it's not a huge structure. And I decide that I'm going to take a nap because, hell, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm out in the jungle. Nobody knows where the hell I am. None of my friends know where I am. My wife doesn't know where I am. I mean, I'm out there. I'm alone. I'm feeling disoriented and unwell. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a nap, and I'm going to trust that this Buddha face is either going to guard me in my sleep, or if I am, unworthy, if you will, perhaps the Buddha face will call the wrath down upon me. But I was not being disrespectful in my climbing. I was being very polite and considerate and exploring in good faith with a good heart. And so I think that I was hopefully not doing something that might cause somebody to feel like I was transgressing. So anyhow, I'm sitting here on this ledge, and I take a nap, and I definitely had something that was a bit closer to a lucid dream than normal. If you ever take a nap in the daytime, you know that like daytime sleeping, it's always a little closer to the surface than nighttime sleeping. And so I'm on this stone raft, and I'm drifting through the river of my semi-conscious, semi-lucid dream of disorientation and vertigo and what have you. And I just dreamed nothing that I can remember. The dreams were not significant, but it was the feeling that was significant of, through the course of my sleeping for, I don't know, an hour or two on this warm stone on this beautiful day in this tropical land, that I awoke an hour or two later, and here I am, and the fellows who were working have actually moved closer, but they don't even know that I'm there yet because I'm just quiet and minding my own business. And I wake up, and I'm feeling much better and much less vertigo, and so I hop back on my bicycle, and I continue on with my journey of exploring the temple complex. But that's the story of the time that I slept under the watchful eye on the stone bow of the Buddha guardian of the temple complex at Angkor Wat.